What's up, family? Hope everybody's doing well. I'm off today, getting ready to go through the car wash. While I was sitting here waiting for them to open, first of all, let me say thanks for everybody that tuned in, all my subscribers, viewers, commenters, commentators. I do appreciate it. I love the engagement, especially those of you that make comments and even tell about things that have happened in your own lives on some of these topics and give your opinion. I do appreciate that. I really do. That's motivation. That's motivation to keep, for me. I think every content creator probably has their own motivation, but when people are in the comment section sharing their stories, their life, their experiences, even if it's not always positive, right? Life is not always positive. It has some negatives to it. And somehow we try to take those negatives and turn them into positives. They say take lemons and make lemonade. So I appreciate everybody. I was sitting here, my daughter, who's almost 21, she follows my channel. She had texted me last night and asked me if one of my videos could be about how relationships should be more practical than spiritual. And so I want to just set a little foundation here as to what she is referring to. My daughter is raised in the church, and so her perception of life and relationships will come from, quote unquote, the lens of the church. That's how she was raised. Oftentimes, I would say, and those of you who grew up in the church and go to church, you understand what I'm saying here. Oftentimes in the church, particularly a Pentecostal type church, and depending on the programs or the vision of that church, there's no real talk about the practical side of relationships. Even all the way up to marriage. Now I'm not talking every church, so I know somebody could say, well, my church, we do this. I'm not talking every church, but if you take, I would say most churches, and I've gone to several churches, I have been to hundreds of churches. If you take most churches, they kind of just put the emphasis on the spiritual side. So, quote unquote, a woman would be looking for a man of God, or I want a man that has a relationship with God. What does that even mean? What does that even mean? Because if we break down the true meaning of just a man having a relationship with God or a man of God, and we really look into what all that entails, well, I want him, what are you saying? I want him to have a prayer life. I want him to trust Christ for all things. I want him to lean on the word of God. I want his life to be set up based on the word of God and the script. How many are the women ready for that kind of lifestyle? Are they ready? So a lot of times when these things are thrown out, especially to teenagers or young adults, find a man in the church. Find you a spiritual man. Find you a man that loves God. Then a lot of time the practical side is left out. And I tell my daughter, which is probably why she asked me to do a video, I say at the end of the day, when you get married, you will not be living with Jesus in the flesh. When you get married, now we do know that we want Christ to be the center of their lives, but Jesus is not the one that's in the house. When there's arguments that come up, and arguments will come, she's not arguing with Jesus. She's going to be arguing with a man. When troubles come, and troubles will come, when decisions have to be made, and decisions have to be made every day, in relationships, particularly and in marriage, you're dealing with someone that you can see face to face, that you can touch. And so relationships have to be, I don't want to say more practical than, but there has to be an emphasis on the practicality of relationships. At the end of the day, what is it that we want? You still have to be able to communicate with one another. You still have to be able to get to know one another. And so a lot of times in the church, the idea is presented as, if both of you just love God, everything is going to work out. If both of you just love God, it'll all come together. And this is what I have found in my short life, even though I'm middle-aged. This is what I have found. This is what brothers in the church, when I used to attend regularly, this is what brothers in the church would share amongst brothers that caused me to come up with what I'm about to say, that has shaped my mind with what I'm about to say. At least from the men's point of view, I cannot speak for their wives. I will speak, though, for men who, when we go to fellowship breakfast, when we're sitting down, when we're bowling together, when we're hanging out, when we're watching a game together, the majority of Christian marriages are staying married as an honor to God, but they are not happy. Very few people that I know in the church has a happy marriage, where if you ask them, are you happy, and they do not feel that they have to fix their answer, or they will be held or feel some condemnation, or it's going to get back to their spouse or whatever. If you ask most people in the church, are you happy? Most of the time there's going to be a hesitation in their response, and they're not really going to want to answer. Now, whether or not a marriage requires you to be happy all the time for it to be successful, well, of course not. Right? At the end of the day, happiness is an emotion. We understand that. But when you are unhappy, it definitely is a terrible life to live when you are committed to live with someone for the rest of your life and you are unhappy in that state. So to me, there has to be a practical side that is just as great as the spiritual side. So if we're talking about two people in the church coming together, there has to be obviously a oneness of belief of what we believe in, where we're pulling our strength from, what we're going to rely on. But the relationship itself, this is just my opinion, the relationship itself, God is not intervening in that. To me, from what I've seen, in other words, if both of them are connected to God as the source, then yes, there is strength, there is wisdom, there is joy, there is peace, all of those adjectives that come with knowing the Lord. If both of them are in it together, then obviously they're going to pull from the vine of Christ and have these things in their life. But at the end of the day, the practical side of relationship, honoring one another, respecting one another, considering one another. Because you don't, just because somebody look like they in the church, don't mean that they necessarily adopt the core values of the Bible, of the Spirit, of God, of Christ, or whatever it is, the religion that people believe in, that you believe in. Just because somebody attend does not mean that those values have been incorporated in their life. Especially in America, where I would say most of the church going and comings is more tradition than it is infiltrating our spirit and really making a change. That's why we can literally leave church and get angry, not that you can't get angry, but have a bad attitude with your spouse and never try to fix it. and you just came out of a 2-hour service, 3 hours for my African American people, for my Caucasian family. I know y'all in and out in 30 minutes, and you know, you got the sandwiches are made at the beginning, 30 minutes. We're eating the sandwiches and the coffee after. I mean, y'all churches, we appreciate those too. Go to African American church, you're gonna be there 3 hours. Choir gonna sing an hour and a half. Preacher gonna preach an hour and a half. Announcement's gonna be 30 minutes. So if I was you, I would come after the announcements and halfway through the choir so you don't fall asleep. But there has to be a practical side. And I think this is what my daughter is zoning in on, because there's a lot of spirits talk. And it's very basic. Jesus can, God will work it out. He'll do this, he'll do that. What are you talking about? Yes, prayer does make a difference, but it's still going. When you're done praying, somebody got to get up and say, this marriage is going to work. This relationship is going to work because we are willing to put in the work that we have learned from the scriptures. I have learned, not me personally, right? I'm divorced. I done made my mistakes. I'm reaching back to those, especially those who are in the church and considering relationship and marriage, and you're trying to figure out this maze. You have to pull from the word, from the spirit, from the values of Christ, and say, I'm going to apply this to my life. That's when it will become practical. As long as it stays on paper, it's just spiritual and religious. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Do unto others. Even the prayer in the Lord's Prayer, forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. Now, if we are all honest in just those two things, how many of us really who may go to church, how many of us really walk that out in practicality? We are quick to ask God to forgive us for our trespasses, but we are slow to ask God to forgive the people who has trespassed against us. And if you don't know what the word trespass means from the biblical point of view, just think of what it means from a natural point of view when you go through somebody's yard or farm or in the woods or somebody's business or property and you see the sign that says no trespassing. And what it means is if you don't belong here, you don't need to be here. It's a violation of presence. You have moved into an area that you're not responsible. You're not supposed to be here. You're walking all in my yard. You're not a guest of mine. You're not family. You're not a friend of mine. You are a stranger. And why are you on my property? That's trespass. And every day somebody trespass against us, or at least weekly, and we're going to trespass against somebody. We're going to do something, say something that is out of our parameter to do and say. Somebody's going to get offended. Somebody's going to do something to us. And how many church people, just those two examples, when they go to pray, they release the people to God and they forgive those who has trespassed against them? Or are we better at holding grudges? I'm not talking to her. Especially women, right? Because they get into emotion. I ain't talking to her. She know what she did. Then you gonna go to church. Go to church and shout. Soon as the drums hit, the heels come off, or they stay on, and you doing the two-step. Relationships have to be walked out in practicality. Even if you are spiritual, you have to pull from what the Spirit is saying, and somebody has to be able to walk that out in real time. And it can't just be all spirit talk, and left in the air as to what that means. If two people are going to love each other for a lifetime, somebody's going to have to put in the work. Matter of fact, the word love is a verb anyway. It's not, we use it as an emotion. I love her. It's not an adjective. It's a verb. If I never say it, she should see it. If I never say it, even though I should say it, because as humans, we like to hear it. As women, they like to hear it. So I'm speaking from a man's point of view. If I never say it, can she see it? My mom told me about my own father in the last year. They've been together 48 years. I know I have been loved by your father. And my dad is a retired soldier. Not that that means he should not be emotional, but he's not the type to say, I love you. But he's going to show it in every way. Now, my mom in the last year said, I know I have been loved by your father. I have seen my dad make sacrifices for my mother on just a request that she may have. I'll joke with my dad. Matter of fact, this was in the last 6 months. When my dad worked, I went to see him. He's a cross guard. He retired now. He just give back to the community. So he's a cross guard for the kids at school. So I drove up to his area. And I said, Dad, let me $10,000. I don't know what I said. I made up something because I wasn't really asking for the money. You know how we do. Let me hold something. He said, nah, bud, your mom want her bathroom redone. 2 or 3 weeks later, I'll go over there. They got the men all working in the house, redoing her bathroom, putting up new lights and whatnot. Not that it's about material things. I'm just saying, I seen how my dad moved. A request from my mom, my dad is going to move into action. See, that's the practical side. My wife of over 40 years has made a request. How am I able in my capacity to bring that request to pass? Okay, I am. I've done well for myself. I've done well with finance. I understand how things work. I put some to the side. We're good. We're good. So from the capacity that I have and the request that she has made, I don't have to ask God. He ain't thinking, God, should I do this for my wife? It has become practical. I love her. And in my love for her, a request that she has made, and she has been dedicated, and as much as I know, loyal, faithful, honoring me, as much as I know, right? Maybe they got stuff I don't know about. It don't matter. They worked through it. If they did, they worked through it. I don't know about it. So out of what I make, out of my bag, out of my resources, am I able to honor my wife's request in a practical way? And then before you know it, the bathroom is done. Relationships, although spiritual, have to be practical. It can't be lived in an invisible world where everything is just mysticism. Can't do that. Somebody got to put shoes on every day. Somebody got to find something to eat. Somebody's got to get the groceries. Somebody's got to go to work. Somebody's got to open up the door. Somebody's got to put up the groceries. Somebody's got to bring in the groceries. Somebody's got to be considerate. Somebody's got to take you out on a date. Somebody's got to tell you look nice, smell nice. Somebody got to say you're attractive. Somebody got to say I really appreciate you. Somebody's got to say I'm really glad that I met you. Somebody's got to do and say and live these things in a practical sense. That's all I'm saying. So if you're in the church or not in the church, like I said, this video was primarily out of a request that my daughter gave me last night, if I would do it. So I'm honoring her. To my daughter, you're watching this, I love you. Hopefully you know that. I believe you do. It can't just be spiritual. It has to be as practical. The spirit makes you practical. Matter of fact, when I was growing up, there was a saying that, you know, you can be so heavenly minded that you know earthly good. Yeah. If you're going to be spiritual, allow it to make you earthly good. Jesus was earthly good. He took care of those on the earthly sense. He healed the sick. He healed the leper. He opened up blinded eyes. He turned water into wine. He was very practical. And that's what we need in spiritual relationships. So put something in the comments. Y'all let me know what y'all think. If this can help somebody, please share it. Sharing helps me out too. I noticed that if you give a thumbs up and share it, and also, you know, those that leave comments and stuff, that helps out because it lets YouTube know that people are interested in what he's saying. So ProfessorX7942@gmail.com if you have anything you want me to discuss or get my perspective on. And thank y'all for watching. Peace.